Welcome to another quiet evening with Historical Nights. You are invited to settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and allow your mind to drift gently into the tapestry of a time long gone. Tonight's story is not a tale of triumph, nor one of conquest. It's a story of endings, of twilight moments, of legacy. We journey to the shifting sands of Egypt's fading independence, to the glimmering halls of Alexandria, and to the life of one of the most iconic, misunderstood, and captivating women in ancient history, Cleopatra VII, Philopator. Let your breathing slow. Imagine the distant scent of incense curling through marble corridors, the hush of the Nile, wide and dark beneath a moonlit sky, and far away, a woman who walked the line between myth and mortality. This is Cleopatra's final stand. Imagine yourself waking with the sun in the golden hour before dawn. The air is cool against your skin, carrying the faint scent of reeds and silt. A mist hangs over the Nile, soft and silent. You hear the rustle of papyrus, the coo of doves, the distant bray of donkeys beginning their morning toil. The year is somewhere in the 30s BCE, and Egypt, ancient even then, breathes in its final years of independence. This is a land at the edge of empire. Cleopatra rules from Alexandria, a city of dazzling scholarship and decaying splendor, but most Egyptians live far from its libraries and colonnades. In a modest village near the Nile's curve, daily life unfolds with a rhythm older than memory. Children stir in low, mud-brick homes. Their mothers, wrapped in linen shawls, grind barley with rhythmic, deliberate strokes. The stone mills hum like the turning of time itself. Outside, men ready the oxen. They walk with staffs, their sandals slapping gently on packed earth, heading for the fields where wheat, flax, and emmer grow in loamy soil nourished by the last flood. The sun rises slowly, a golden disk behind palm fronds, spilling light across the glistening river. Fishermen push reed boats into the current. Their nets are carefully mended, their hands sun-worn. Egrets and herons stand sentinel in the marsh, still and white against the morning rush. You pass through a local market. The air is thick with spice and sun-warmed fruit. Dates, onions, garlic, and lotus roots lie in wide baskets. Incense burns at a small altar to Taweret, the goddess who guards birth. Nearby, a scribe seated cross-legged on woven mat trades letters for a hen. A priest passes, robes rustling, his head shaven, eyes lined with kohl. Temples rise on the edge of this world, stone monuments weathered by time. They are places of power and mystery where rituals unfold in hushed shadow. Sacred ibis walk the courtyards, and sacred texts are read aloud in voices softened by devotion. The scent of hot sand, temple incense, and perfumed oils mingles in the air. You can almost hear the chanting of prayers echoing softly against massive sandstone walls. The people live by cycles: the inundation of the Nile, the planting and harvesting seasons, the festival days marked by music and drink, and the quiet nights when the stars gather above the river like jewels in a black sea. Evening falls and fires flicker in homes. Families gather over lentil stew, flatbread, figs, and sour beer. Outside, the Nile laps gently at the banks. The moon rises, silver and soft, lighting the world in a pale hush. Someone plays a quiet tune on a lyre, the notes drifting like mist. A mother rocks her child, humming a lullaby that her own mother once sang. And somewhere in the distance, Alexandria waits. Its towers glint faintly under starlight. And there, Cleopatra reigns, not just a queen, but a symbol of all Egypt has been, and all it might yet lose. Let us now turn our eyes toward Cleopatra VII was not born a queen. She was born into a throne that trembled. Imagine her as a child, hair dark, eyes sharp, raised in the great palace of Alexandria within view of the glittering harbor and the towering Pharos lighthouse. Her early days would have been filled with learning, mathematics, rhetoric, philosophy, but most notably, languages. Cleopatra, unlike her Ptolemaic forebears, spoke not only Greek but Egyptian and several others beyond. Her linguistic talents were more than a curiosity. They were political tools. In a country where rulers had long remained aloof from the native tongue, Cleopatra chose to speak directly to her people. It was a calculated intimacy. She was a descendant of Ptolemy I, a general under Alexander the Great. Her family had ruled Egypt for nearly 3 centuries, Greek rulers in an Egyptian land. And by the time Cleopatra was born, the dynasty was weakened, crumbling under internal strife and the looming shadow of Roman ambition. Her father, Ptolemy XII, Auletes, ruled with instability, often at the mercy of Roman favor. His reign was marked by exiles and debts. Cleopatra learned early that power came not only from blood, but from the careful art of alliance. Her father's reliance on bribes to maintain Roman support taught her that foreign policy was fragile and always conditional. The court was no place for innocence. Siblings were rivals, not companions. Poison was a method, not a myth. Cleopatra survived through observation. She learned when to speak and when to remain still. She watched her father's gestures, the expressions of ambassadors, the shifting dynamics of power. When her father died, Cleopatra ascended to the throne alongside her younger brother. She was 17, he was 10, and though they were co-rulers in name, Cleopatra was the true force behind the crown. Her image appeared alone on coins. Her titles emphasized her authority. But within a few years she was exiled, forced to flee as palace intrigues ousted her. Alone in Syria, she gathered an army. She waited, she watched. Then came a wind from the west. A Roman general, chasing the ghost of his rival, would change everything. Julius Caesar had arrived. Let us drift now into that fateful meeting. It was the winter of 48 BCE, when Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt. The Mediterranean winds had cooled, and Alexandria, always a city of contrasts, lay heavy beneath gray skies and political tension. Imagine the harbor, ships creaking softly in the breeze, gulls wheeling overhead, and Roman soldiers disembarking with cautious steps. Their armor was foreign against the backdrop of painted Egyptian columns and Greek-styled facades. Alexandria, caught between identities, was again to become the stage for the theater of empire. At the time, the Egyptian throne was fractured. Cleopatra and her brother, Ptolemy XIII, were locked in a civil war. Factions in the court maneuvered with silent urgency. Streets buzzed with rumor. And it was into this uncertainty that Caesar stepped, ostensibly pursuing the remnants of his rival, Pompey the Great. But Pompey had already arrived, and he had already met his fate. Ptolemy's advisors, seeking to win Caesar's favor, had executed Pompey upon his arrival. His severed head was offered to Caesar as a grotesque token of alliance. But Caesar, calculating, yes, but also steeped in Roman ideals of dignity and honor, was reportedly appalled. He wept, or so the chroniclers claim. This act, intended to secure favor, instead opened a space for Cleopatra. She knew that Caesar's presence could change everything, and so, in one of history's most enduring tales of political theater, Cleopatra made her move. Barred from openly entering the palace due to her exile and the dangerous atmosphere of Alexandria, she chose a different path. She was smuggled into the royal residence, rolled in a rug, some say a sack of linen, and carried through guarded halls by her loyal servant Apollodorus. The palace was lit with low burning oil lamps. Mosaics glimmered beneath sandaled feet, and through silence and shadows, Cleopatra was delivered to Caesar. When he unfurled the rug, there she was, young, charismatic, and composed. Not a girl, but a queen. Her hair perfumed, her robes carefully arranged. She spoke in Greek with eloquence, her voice measured yet warm. She offered not seduction, but alliance. And Caesar, pragmatic and curious, saw in her not just beauty, but opportunity. Their connection was swift and strategic. Cleopatra represented stability in a divided land. She was intelligent, politically aware, and fluent in the nuances of both Egyptian and Roman expectation. With Caesar's support, she returned to power. Ptolemy XIII and his forces would clash with Caesar's in a brief but decisive conflict known as the Alexandrian War. The city itself became a battlefield. Streets echoed with the clash of swords and the cries of soldiers. Fires broke out. The great library of Alexandria may have suffered damage during these skirmishes. After Ptolemy XIII's defeat and his death, he is said to have drowned in the Nile. Cleopatra was reinstated as queen. She would now rule with another younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, nominally beside her. With Caesar, she sailed the Nile. They toured the country together as a statement of unity and vision. The people watched as the Roman conqueror and the Egyptian queen drifted down the sacred river in a golden bark surrounded by oarsmen, musicians, and priests. The sight was meant to evoke Osiris and Isis, the eternal pair. From this union came a child, Caesarion, little Caesar, a boy Cleopatra would later present not only as a son, but as a co-ruler, a symbol of legacy. But for now, in this segment of her story, Cleopatra stood at the height of restoration, her throne reclaimed, her image burnished, her realm, for the moment, secure. Yet, as always in her life, the calm would not last. Let us now walk with her toward her next great alliance and her most fateful entanglement with Mark Antony. Imagine the sun setting over the Mediterranean, a soft glow casting long shadows across the harbor of Tarsus, a city on the southern coast of what is now Turkey. The air is warm but carries a faint saltiness from the sea breeze. It is here in 41 BCE that two of the ancient world's most famous figures met, Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt, and Marcus Antonius, better known as Mark Antony, one of Rome's leading generals and triumvirs. Mark Antony arrived in the eastern provinces of the Roman Republic with heavy burdens. The old republic was fracturing with former allies and enemies, locked in a series of brutal conflicts. Antony's political position was precarious. Egypt, meanwhile, represented both an opportunity and a puzzle. A wealthy, ancient kingdom ruled by a queen whose reputation already spanned continents. Now, imagine Cleopatra preparing for Antony's arrival. The Egyptian queen understood the power of spectacle, of symbolism, and of performance. This meeting would be as much a display of calculated artistry as it was a political negotiation. Cleopatra arranged her entrance like a scene from a dream. She sailed down the Cydnus River in a barge that seemed to float upon the water like a goddess herself. The vessel was adorned with purple sails, the color of royalty, and decorated with gold accents that caught the dying sunlight, scattering it like small stars. Musicians played soft melodies, lyres, flutes, and harps, while servants scattered fresh flowers into the water's surface. The queen reclined on a couch of exotic silks and rich cushions, her attire shimmering with fine linens and delicate jewelry. The air around her was thick with the scent of frankincense and myrrh, the perfume lingering like a gentle cloud. Her eyes were said to sparkle with intelligence and a calm confidence that few could match. Mark Antony, upon seeing Cleopatra in this regal display, must have felt a mixture of awe and cautious admiration. Here was not only a woman of immense power, but also one who understood how to command attention without force, how to bend spectacle into a political tool. The meeting that followed was not merely a private conversation, but a carefully choreographed encounter filled with layers of meaning. Cleopatra was fluent in the languages and customs of Rome and Egypt, and Antony, though a soldier, was a man attuned to the nuances of diplomacy. Their alliance grew quickly, binding them both personally and politically. It was a union that would last for years, marked by shared ambitions and mutual respect. Yet it was also a union fraught with tension and the burdens of two worlds on the brink of transformation. Together, Antony and Cleopatra navigated the turbulent waters of Roman politics and Egyptian sovereignty, their relationship a complex weave of love, strategy, and spectacle. Alexandria became a city of magnificence and political theater. The queen's palace filled with grand banquets where the scents of roasted meats, spices, and rich wines mingled with the laughter of courtiers and the soft sounds of music. Servants moved quietly, balancing trays of figs, pomegranates, and sweet cakes. At night, the halls were illuminated by the warm flicker of oil lamps, casting dancing shadows on marble columns and intricate mosaics. Cleopatra and Antony would often retreat to private chambers where their conversations deepened, shaped by the ambitions they shared and the challenges they faced. Yet, despite their closeness, the realities of their alliance were complicated by the broader struggles of Rome and its internal conflicts. Mark Antony's involvement with Cleopatra drew suspicion and political attacks in Rome. His enemies portrayed the Egyptian queen as a foreign temptress, a dangerous influence pulling Antony away from his duties. Propaganda painted Cleopatra as a threat to Roman values, a queen who might topple the republic itself. Cleopatra, however, was more than the sum of these accusations. She was a ruler fighting to preserve her kingdom, using every tool at her disposal, including her relationship with Antony. As you imagine this story unfolding, allow the images and sounds to flow softly around you. The gentle murmur of the Mediterranean waves, the rustle of silk, the faint strains of distant music. This is a tale of power woven with intimacy, of two lives converging in a world shifting beneath their feet. And it is here at the heart of this story that Cleopatra's final years truly begin. As the soft glow of dawn paints the Nile's waters in hues of gold and rose, we find ourselves drifting into the intricate world of Cleopatra's political strategy. Imagine the quiet halls of her palace in Alexandria, grand and yet intimate, where decisions were made that would ripple through the ancient world. Cleopatra was a ruler shaped by the relentless tides of power and survival. She inherited not just a kingdom, but a fragile legacy, perched precariously between the encroaching forces of Rome and the ancient traditions of Egypt. To maintain her throne, she had to weave together the delicate threads of diplomacy, alliance, and sometimes subtle coercion. Visualize her seated behind an elaborately carved wooden desk, papers and scrolls before her, the soft rustle of papyrus as she studies reports from her emissaries. She was fluent in several languages, an exceptional skill that allowed her to communicate directly with the many cultures within her realm and beyond. Greek, Egyptian, Latin, each word carefully chosen, each phrase designed to build trust or assert authority. Cleopatra's political acumen was evident in the alliances she crafted. Beyond the famous unions with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, she maintained a network of loyal supporters within the Egyptian elite and foreign powers. Her court was a hub of diplomacy where envoys arrived bearing gifts and messages from distant lands. She understood the importance of symbolism in maintaining her authority. Imagine the grand festivals held along the Nile where the queen appeared as the living embodiment of Isis, the goddess of fertility and magic. Draped in shimmering linens and gold, she was both ruler and divine presence, reinforcing her right to lead. But Cleopatra's strategy was not confined to spectacle alone. She was deeply engaged in the administration of her kingdom. Picture her reviewing tax records, negotiating trade agreements, and making decisions that affected the daily lives of millions. The markets of Alexandria thrived under her reign, bustling with merchants trading everything from grain and papyrus to exotic spices and silks. Yet her position was always vulnerable. Rome's power loomed large, and Cleopatra had to balance submission and defiance with great care. Her alliances with Roman leaders were as much about survival as ambition. Through these relationships, she sought to protect Egypt's independence and secure her dynasty's future. Consider the delicate dance of diplomacy, sending envoys to Rome, responding to shifting alliances, and navigating the dangers of political intrigue. Cleopatra's intelligence and resolve allowed her to steer her kingdom through turbulent waters, even as the forces around her grew increasingly hostile. Her ability to adapt was remarkable. When Antony's fortunes waned, she shifted strategies, cultivating new alliances and preparing for the challenges ahead. Her court was a place where politics and power played out in whispers and glances, where every gesture was laden with meaning. As you let these images settle, imagine the steady rhythm of life continuing around her, the gentle lapping of the Nile against the palace walls, the distant call of birds, the murmurs of servants moving through the marble halls. In this serene yet charged atmosphere, Cleopatra wove the web of her rule, combining strength, wisdom, and a keen understanding of human nature. In this segment, we see not just a queen, but a shrewd strategist, a diplomat navigating a world in flux with grace and determination. Her legacy is as much about her political skill as it is about her legendary persona. With this understanding, we now turn to the vibrant culture of Alexandria itself, a city where worlds met and mingled, shaping the stage on which Cleopatra's story unfolded. Picture Alexandria, a city that rises gently from the sparkling Mediterranean Sea like a jewel set in stone and sand. The year is roughly 40 BCE, and Alexandria is no ordinary city. It is a crossroads, a melting pot of cultures, ideas, and peoples. Imagine strolling through the city's broad streets. The air is thick with the mingling scents of salt, blooming jasmine, baked bread, and the subtle smoke of distant hearth fires. Marble statues of Greek gods stand alongside obelisks etched with Egyptian hieroglyphs. Markets buzz softly with the hum of many languages, Greek, Egyptian, Aramaic, Latin, blending into a soothing symphony of voices. Alexandria was founded by Alexander the Great, but had grown into something far more complex, a place where the legacies of Egypt, Greece, and Rome converged. It was a city of contrasts where old traditions mingled with new ideas. At its heart lay the legendary Library of Alexandria. Imagine entering a grand hall filled with towering shelves lined with scrolls, thousands upon thousands of papyri recording human knowledge, science, philosophy, and poetry. Scholars from every corner of the known world gathered here, debating softly under high colonnades, their words echoing like whispers through time. The library was more than just a repository, it was a beacon of learning. Scientists studied the stars, mathematicians calculated the dimensions of the earth, Poets composed verses, and historians recorded events as they unfolded. This atmosphere of quiet intellectual curiosity was an essential part of Alexandria's identity. Amidst this world of knowledge, the people of Alexandria lived lives marked by both tradition and innovation. The city was home to a diverse population: Egyptians, Greeks, Jews, Romans, and others, each group maintaining its customs while contributing to the city's rich tapestry. Imagine the festivals that lit up Alexandria's calendar. Processions moved through streets lined with flowers and banners. Priests chanted ancient hymns to gods both Egyptian and Hellenistic. The scent of incense rose toward the sky, mixing with the salty breeze. Music filled the air, the soft plucking of lyres, the gentle beat of drums, creating a rhythm that pulsed with life. Daily life here was a dance between the sacred and the mundane. Artisans crafted intricate jewelry and pottery, merchants traded in exotic goods from distant lands, and fishermen pulled nets heavy with silver fish from the sea. At the same time, the city was a place of power and politics. Cleopatra's palace overlooked the harbor, a symbol of the fusion of royal Egyptian authority and Hellenistic grandeur. The queen herself moved through this multicultural world with ease, understanding the subtle currents that shaped Alexandria. Her court was a microcosm of the city, filled with poets, philosophers, diplomats, and courtiers from many backgrounds. Conversations ranged from politics to poetry, from philosophy to the latest news from Rome. The blending of Egyptian religious tradition with Greek and Roman elements was especially visible in art and ceremony. Cleopatra was often portrayed as Isis, the goddess of magic and motherhood, but she also embraced the iconography of Greek deities, a reflection of her dual heritage. This fusion was not without its tensions. The city's diversity could also give rise to conflict, as different communities navigated their identities and loyalties. Yet, it was this very mixture that made Alexandria vibrant and resilient. As you imagine walking through these streets, the mosaic patterns beneath your feet, the sun warming your skin, the distant murmur of the sea, feel the slow pulse of a city alive with history and possibility. A city where cultures intertwined and where Cleopatra's story was inseparable from the life around her. In this place, ideas flowed as freely as the Nile's waters, carrying with them the hopes, dreams, and fears of a world on the brink of transformation. Let your mind rest gently in this vision of Alexandria, where the past and future meet in a calm, steady rhythm, before we move deeper into the mysteries surrounding Cleopatra herself. As twilight deepens, imagine yourself settling into a quiet corner of Alexandria's vast palace, where the soft glow of oil lamps casts gentle shadows on the walls. Here, we explore one of history's enduring enigmas, the true appearance and character of Cleopatra VII. Cleopatra's image has long been shrouded in a veil of myth, legend, and sometimes distortion. Over 2 millennia, poets, historians, and artists have painted her in many colors, sometimes as an enchanting beauty, sometimes as a cunning seductress. But the truth is far more nuanced, woven from fragments of coins, sculptures, and ancient writings. Picture, first, the coins minted during Cleopatra's reign. These small, circular portraits offer us perhaps the most reliable glimpses of her face. Her profile is striking. Sharp features, a strong jawline, a prominent nose, features that suggest intelligence and resolve rather than conventional beauty by today's standards. There is a hint of proud dignity in her expression, a woman fully aware of her power and responsibilities. It is important to remember that standards of beauty in the ancient world differed greatly from modern ideals. Cleopatra's charisma likely lay not only in her physical appearance, but also in her presence, the way she carried herself, the sound of her voice, and the sharpness of her mind. Contemporary accounts emphasize her intellect and charm. Ancient writers like Plutarch described her as a woman whose allure was in her wit, her eloquence, and her ability to captivate with conversation. Imagine her speaking in multiple languages: Greek, Egyptian, Latin, each word carefully chosen, each phrase weaving a spell. Her personality was said to be complex and magnetic. She was known for her quick intelligence, a sharp political mind, and a deep understanding of people. Her ability to command attention was less about physical beauty and more about the force of her character. Think of Cleopatra as a skilled actress on a stage, able to adapt her role to the audience before her, whether Roman generals or Egyptian priests, always maintaining control of the narrative. Yet, there is also a softer side to imagine. Letters and stories suggest moments of tenderness and vulnerability, private glimpses of a woman who loved her children deeply and who bore the weight of her kingdom with a blend of strength and humanity. The mystery of Cleopatra's personality is also shaped by the political battles of her time. Roman propaganda often sought to portray her as a dangerous foreign queen, using exaggeration and fear to influence public opinion. These portrayals obscure the multifaceted reality of her character. As you breathe slowly and gently, picture Cleopatra's world, not just as a queen or a symbol, but as a living, breathing woman navigating the delicate dance of power, love, and survival. Her personality, like the ripples on the Nile's surface, was constantly shifting, reflecting the light of her surroundings and the tides of history. Allow yourself to rest in this quiet contemplation of Cleopatra's true essence, a figure both human and legendary, whose story continues to whisper through the corridors of time. Soon, we will turn to explore the daily lives of those who lived under her reign, the Egyptian elite and the common people, revealing the rhythms and contrasts of life in this extraordinary era. As the gentle light of morning filters through columns draped in flowering vines, imagine yourself walking slowly through the streets of Alexandria and the surrounding Egyptian villages. The rhythms of daily life unfold quietly, each moment steeped in ancient traditions, contrasting worlds, and the enduring pulse of the Nile. Let us begin with the Egyptian elite, those who lived in the grandeur of Cleopatra's court and the prosperous city neighborhoods. Picture grand houses with open courtyards shaded by fig and date palms, fountains bubbling softly in the center, and walls adorned with frescoes depicting gods, pharaohs, and scenes from everyday life. The air here is fragrant, with the scent of jasmine and rosewater mixed with the rich aroma of freshly baked bread and spiced meats simmering in earthenware pots. The elite families rose early, their mornings marked by a slow, deliberate routine. Noble women would be attended by servants who helped them dress in finely woven linens, sometimes dyed with delicate colors from natural sources, soft blues, gentle reds, and warm yellows. Jewelry made from gold, carnelian, and lapis lazuli adorned their necks and wrists, catching alight with a quiet shimmer. Their hair was often elaborately braided or adorned with ribbons and beads. Men of the elite dressed in similarly fine linens, sometimes wearing cloaks dyed with expensive purple, a color reserved for those of rank. Their days were filled with administrative duties, overseeing estates, managing trade, or participating in the intellectual life of Alexandria's many academies and libraries. Imagine the gentle sounds that filled these homes, the soft murmur of conversation in Greek or Egyptian, the distant call of merchants in the marketplace, the occasional laughter of children playing near a shaded garden. Meals were prepared with care, featuring fresh fish from the Mediterranean, lentils and beans from the fields, sweet figs and dates, often accompanied by wine diluted with water and flavored with herbs. Now shift your gaze to the common people, the farmers, fishermen, craftsmen, and laborers who formed the backbone of Egyptian society. Their homes were simpler, built from mud brick with thatched roofs, sometimes clustered in small villages or dense neighborhoods in Alexandria. Picture the early morning bustle as fishermen push small boats into the Nile's gentle current, nets trailing behind them ready to gather the day's catch. Farmers tend to the fields, their hands rough from work planting and harvesting wheat, barley, and flax. The air here is cooler, earthy, thick with the scent of damp soil and freshly cut reeds. Daily life for commoners was a constant rhythm of labor, punctuated by moments of community. Markets filled with the chatter of voices as merchants sold pottery, textiles, and fresh produce. Children played games in the alleys, their laughter rising above the din of daily chores. Food was more modest but nourishing: flatbreads, lentils, onions, and occasional fish or poultry when available. Water from the Nile was a precious resource, and wells and communal baths offered relief from the sun's warmth. Religion was woven deeply into everyday life for all classes. Temples dedicated to gods like Isis, Osiris, and Horus stood as places of worship and refuge. Festivals and rituals marked the calendar, drawing together people of all ranks in shared celebrations and prayers. Despite the differences, there was a shared resilience and connection to the land and the river that sustained them. Life was not easy. Hardships such as disease, famine, and political instability touched every level of society. Yet within these challenges, communities found strength in tradition, family, and faith. As you imagine these contrasting worlds, the polished halls of the elite and the bustling streets of the common folk, notice the steady pulse that ties them together. The flow of the Nile, the passage of the sun across the sky, and the unbroken thread of history beneath their feet. Let this vision of daily life settle softly in your mind, a gentle reminder of the complex tapestry of human existence during Cleopatra's reign. When you are ready, we will move onward to the broader stage of Roman civil conflict and its profound effects on Egypt and its people. Imagine standing at the edge of the great Mediterranean, the salt air mingling softly with the warm desert breeze. The year is around 44 BCE, and the world is shifting beneath the feet of many ancient civilizations. At the heart of this change is Rome, a republic teetering on the brink of transformation, pulled by forces of ambition, loyalty, and conflict. These tremors will reach even the far shores of Egypt, touching the life of Cleopatra and her kingdom in profound ways. The Roman Civil War was not a sudden storm, but a slow, gathering tension, a long twilight of power struggles and shifting alliances. It began after the assassination of Julius Caesar, whose presence had once been a beacon for Cleopatra. His death sent ripples of uncertainty through the Mediterranean world. Picture the map of the ancient world where armies and legions marched under banners emblazoned with eagles and symbols of power. The triumvirate, Octavian, Mark Antony, and Lepidus, divided Rome's vast territories, but their uneasy alliance soon frayed. Cleopatra's role in this drama was delicate and vital. Imagine her as a chess player, each move carefully calculated, her eyes fixed on the board of Roman politics. Her alliance with Mark Antony, a man both powerful and volatile, was more than personal. It was political, an attempt to safeguard Egypt's independence amid the chaos. The civil war spilled into Egypt's borders in more ways than one. Roman soldiers and mercenaries filled the city streets. Supplies became scarce at times, and the economy strained under the weight of war. For the people of Alexandria, the distant battles were more than stories. They meant uncertainty, tension, and the constant shadow of violence. Imagine the marketplaces quieter than usual, merchants wary of the shifting tides of fortune. Families held their breath, hoping for peace but prepared for hardship. The conflict culminated in the famous naval battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Picture the calm sea surface at dawn, ships lined up like chess pieces on a board, crews ready for a clash that would decide the fate of empires. The battle ended in defeat for Antony and Cleopatra, sealing the future of Egypt. In the aftermath, Alexandria was transformed. The Roman grip tightened, and the city faced sieges, shortages, and the slow erosion of its ancient autonomy. Yet, through it all, Cleopatra's presence remained, a beacon of resistance, resilience, and tragic dignity. As you let this history wash over you, imagine the slow rhythm of the Nile continuing. Indifferent to human strife, its waters carrying the memories of countless generations. The great river flows on, a silent witness to empires rising and falling, kings and queens struggling for power beneath its timeless surface. Let your mind rest gently on this profound shift before we move into our next segment, where we will explore the final days. Imagine a quiet, contemplative evening in the royal palace of Alexandria. The sun has slipped beneath the horizon, and the sky glows faintly with the last colors of dusk. Inside the grand halls, silence stretches softly, broken only by the gentle flicker of oil lamps casting dancing shadows on the walls. In these final days, Cleopatra faces choices heavy with consequence, not only for herself, but for the future of Egypt. The defeat at Actium was a turning point. Mark Antony, once a powerful ally and lover, had lost favor both on the battlefield and in Rome. The tides of fortune were shifting quickly, and with Octavian's forces advancing steadily, the walls of Alexandria felt both fortress and cage. Imagine Cleopatra walking through the palace gardens, the scent of night-blooming flowers mingling with the cool breeze from the sea. She moves slowly, her mind weighing the paths before her. To surrender meant the loss of her kingdom, and perhaps the end of her story. To resist was to risk destruction. The queen's decisions were shaped not just by politics, but by a profound awareness of her own legacy. She had been a ruler, a diplomat, a mother, and a symbol. Her story was entwined with the very identity of Egypt, a land ancient and proud. In these final moments, Cleopatra summoned her closest advisors and attendants. Conversations were hushed, filled with gravity and uncertainty. The queen's calm was a steady force, even as the future grew darker. Mark Antony's return from battle was marked by despair. News of his defeat and the fall of his supporters weighed heavily on him. Together, Antony and Cleopatra found a brief refuge in their shared determination to protect their people and their dignity. But fate was not kind. Antony's death by his own hand sent ripples of sorrow through the palace. Cleopatra was left alone, the weight of the crown heavier than ever. Imagine her preparing for the inevitable. Her movements deliberate, every detail attended to. The final letters written, the children cared for, the last moments shared with loyal companions. Stories whisper of her choice to embrace death on her own terms. A final act of control in a world that had often sought to limit her power. The famous tale of the asp, a serpent whose bite brought a gentle sleep, speaks not just of an end, but of a quiet dignity preserved. Her death marked the close of a remarkable chapter in history. Egypt's ancient independence gave way to Roman rule, and the world around the Nile began to change in ways both vast and subtle. Yet Cleopatra's spirit endures. In the stories told softly by the river's edge, in the art and monuments left behind, and in the quiet spaces where history's whispers linger. As you breathe deeply, imagine the stillness settling over Alexandria, the night wrapping the city in its gentle embrace. Rest here in this space between history and memory before we gently transition to our concluding reflections on Cleopatra. As night deepens and the world outside grows quiet, let us pause to reflect on Cleopatra's legacy. A legacy not only carved in stone and scrolls, but also woven softly into the fabric of time. Imagine yourself standing in a serene garden where ancient trees whisper in the gentle breeze and the distant flow of the Nile murmurs like a lullaby. Here, in this tranquil space, we consider the echoes Cleopatra left behind, echoes that have traveled through centuries, shifting shape with each telling, yet never fading entirely. Cleopatra's story is often told in fragments, through the eyes of conquerors and poets, artists and historians, each with their own lens and agenda. Yet, beneath these layers lies a woman of remarkable intellect, resilience, and nuance. She was a scholar, fluent in many languages, deeply versed in philosophy, politics, and the sciences of her time. Imagine her surrounded by scrolls in the famous Library of Alexandria, engaging in thoughtful discourse, her mind as sharp as the Nile's current. Her political acumen was exceptional. In a male-dominated world of empires and legions, she maneuvered skillfully to preserve Egypt's sovereignty for as long as possible. She formed alliances not through mere charm but through strategy and mutual interest, understanding the delicate balance between diplomacy and power. Think, too, of her cultural impact, the fusion of Egyptian and Hellenistic traditions she embraced and promoted. Under her reign, art, religion, and scholarship flourished, blending Greek and Egyptian customs into a unique tapestry. Her children, symbols of this blending, were heirs to a complex legacy, embodying hopes for the future amid uncertainty. Yet Cleopatra's legacy is also a mirror reflecting how history remembers powerful women. She has been portrayed both as a seductress and a sovereign, sometimes unfairly reduced to myth. In truth, she was both human and extraordinary, her story reminding us of the complexities behind every figure who shapes history. Her final act, choosing dignity in the face of overwhelming odds, invites a gentle contemplation of courage and agency. As you listen, let your thoughts drift gently between past and present, imagining how the world Cleopatra knew compares to the one we inhabit today. The river continues to flow, the seasons turn, and human stories unfold anew, shaped by echoes from long ago. In this quiet reflection, allow yourself to feel connected to that vast tapestry, an unbroken chain of lives, struggles, and dreams, stretching back through millennia. Soon, we will draw our journey to a close with a calm, comforting conclusion, one that gently eases you toward rest and peace. As the final moments of our journey unfold, imagine yourself settling into a cozy nook by the riverbank. The gentle flow of the Nile whispering softly nearby. The stars begin to sprinkle the night sky, each one a quiet witness to the endless passage of time and the stories we have shared tonight. We have traveled through the life and times of Cleopatra, the last pharaoh of Egypt, walking softly through history's corridors, pausing to breathe in the sights, sounds, and gentle rhythms of a world both distant and deeply human. From the bustling streets of Alexandria to the serene temples along the Nile, from the intimate moments of Cleopatra's court to the sweeping tides of empire and destiny, we have traced a story marked by complexity, resilience, and quiet dignity. Now, as you feel the gentle weight of night settling around you, Allow your thoughts to drift like leaves floating on the water, slowly, softly, peacefully. Consider how Cleopatra's story, with all its grandeur and subtlety, mirrors the rhythms of our own lives. The constant ebb and flow of challenge and hope, strength and vulnerability. The past and present intertwine, reminding us that beneath the surface of history are the shared experiences of humanity. Dreams dreamed, choices made, and lives lived with courage. As you close your eyes, imagine the calm waters of the Nile reflecting the moonlight, a smooth, silver path leading you into restful sleep. Let the gentle sounds of the ancient world lull you, soft footsteps on sand, the distant call of night birds, the rustling of palms in a warm breeze. May your dreams carry you lightly through the ages, cradled by the enduring spirit of a queen who lived, loved, and left her mark on the endless river of time. Thank you for joining me on this tranquil voyage into history. Until next time, may peace and rest fill your night.